So the World Health Organization releases this newest revision of its international classification of disease roster. And this time, exclusively playing video games has been included as a disorder. Now, according to the WHO, the following qualifications must be met over the course of a year. Video games take precedence over everything. Gaming consistently causes negative results at work or school. The excessive gaming persists even when health and relations start to fail. Here now to discuss, Katie Freight's Olympic Media Managing Editor, and Dr. Lisa Palmer, a psychotherapist and founder of the Renew Center of Florida. Dr. Palmer, let me start with you. This isn't the first time we've heard this, and I just want to share with the audience some of the abbreviations here. FPS, first-person shooter, MMO, massively multiple player online, and RPG, role-playing games. I've been reading for years that people get sucked into these to the point where they lose contact with reality, and there are serious implications for this.
Absolutely, Charles. You have to understand there's 1.8 billion people worldwide who play video games, and about 40% of them use video games as a way to escape, especially men over women. So it's definitely becoming a more prevalent issue.
Katie, I invited you on because I know you're passionate about this, and you don't believe this, do you?
I don't believe it at all. And Charles, I will say I have played MMOs my entire life. Some of my dearest, closest friends I made through those games. But my issue here is the idea that it is going to make it harder for mental health officials, for doctors, to be able to properly diagnose someone if you're creating these niche categories of addiction or disorder. If someone has depression and is using video games as a crutch, then treating them for gaming disorder is not going to help the root cause, which is depression. This is not something that is going to help people. I think it's only further going to stigmatize an industry that does not deserve this.
Dr. Palmer, is there any truth to that? And also some would say maybe she's got the inverse order. Maybe it's the excessive video game playing and the addiction to it that leads to depression.
Well, underlying any addiction is usually PTSD symptoms, anxiety, depression, and really somebody not being able to cope with their life properly, as well as core-rooted belief systems, negative belief systems, and a maladaptive way of really handling life, wanting to escape your reality into another reality based upon whether you get freedom or peace of mind or control. So you can't just treat addiction from the outside in, you really have to treat it from the inside out.
Katie, because you have been involved in this and you are so passionate about it, and I've seen you push back against any correlation between this and people who commit horrific crimes, but have you seen any disturbing images or people that you felt were somehow disturbed and either hiding in the MMO crowd or getting sucked into these role-playing games to the point where they presented a danger perhaps or for others or to others?
No, absolutely not. But I will say, look, every entertainment in moderation, whether you're binging Netflix for 20 hours or you're watching too much of the World Cup or whatever you're doing, moderation. You need to be able to know when to put a controller down or turn the TV off or put the book down and go do something else. That does not mean that gaming disorder is a thing. And honestly, Charles, in the world we live in right now, the last thing we need is another epidemic for pharma to get its hands on and start peddling these pills to mothers who say that their kids play far too much Fortnite, the new buzzword, and then suddenly you have another epidemic on your hands. This is not correct. This isn't finalized, right. And I highly encourage WHO to reconsider whatever studies they're looking at that have not shown conclusive proof between any sort of addiction or violence or negative health consequences or anything else.
Dr. Palmer, in China, the young men, for about 15 years, they've been calling them grass eaters. And one of the characteristics is they stay up all night, play video games, but they don't want to work. Now, it's part and parcel of rejecting their parents, working those legendary 60, 80-hour weeks and things like that. Mm-hmm. But they say that this ultimately, there are some folks out there that said there's ultimately a negative economic impact of all of this. Do you see that in your practice?
Do I see a negative economic
impact where people just don't want to work, or they just sort of lose touch with reality to the point where, they're not involved like they might have been otherwise?
Of course. That's usually the case with any addiction. Addiction takes you from reality, and it helps you to actually makes you not be as productive as you could be. So it really does.
But esports is going to be a $1.2 billion industry by 2020. If anything, gaming is helping our economy.
All right, ladies, we have to leave it there. And by the way, I said China, the grass eater phenomena is in Japan. Both, I appreciate it. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Next, President Trump seizes on the